Hi everyone, thank you very much. I don't know if you were here the last time I gave a talk for Warsaw.js, but thank you very much for having me for the second time and for trusting me with this. Today, I'm going to talk to you about NX. It's the tool that Narwhal, the company I work for, develops. And to build on what the previous speaker talks about great companies, Narwhal is a very great company because not only do we work with great clients, but we also develop our own open source tools and we're very developer oriented. So enough about Narwhal. About me, a little bit. I'm a software engineer at Narwhal, as I said. I'm the Angular Athens Meetup co-founder. I'm a Google developer expert for Angular, web technologies, and the Google Maps platform. I also participate in the program committee of the Vox Days Greece conference when it happens, but now with the coronavirus, things are a bit uncertain, aren't they? I'm also a speaker, an instructor, a mentor, and a cat person. And I also climb mountains. So this is me at the top of the highest mountain in Greece. So enough about me and the company I work for. Today we'll talk about NX. So the summary of the talk is, first of all, we're going to talk about what a monorepo is, what NX is, if NX is only for monorepos, which is not, why you should use NX, and see some features, and then we'll see it live, we'll see it in action. And I'm very excited about NX, and I hope I pass on to you this excitement. So what is a monorepo? A monorepo is a single Git repository which contains all your apps. That's scary, right? So some facts. It's not a monolith. So it's quite the contrary, because monorepos actually simplify code sharing and cross-project refactorings, and they significantly lower the cost of creating libraries, microservices, and micro frontends. So adopting a monorepo often enables more deployment flexibility. It also, as I said, supports multiple projects in the same repository. But what's cool is that projects depend on each other and they share code. And you can manage dependencies in a better way. Also, when there is a change, you do not rebuild or retest everything. This is a misconception. You only test or rebuild the affected code, and we'll see this in action. Also, you can have a lot of independence because you can split your code into composable modules, and each developer or each team of developers can work only on a separated part of a huge code base. So it does provide a lot of independence. And also it delivers consistency and predictability in your code by also maximizing the ability to share code between projects. What is NX though? NX is a set of powerful, extensible developer tools which help you scale your application and coordinate better with your team, which is good. So some facts, the big companies are using it, like companies like Google do use the monorepos, and large companies use NX. It's good for all sizes though. You can have a smaller size application. It does not mean that you have to manage a huge code base in order to use NX. And it's not only for monorepos, because NX also provides a huge set of tools and features, which we will see later in this talk. And you will be convinced that it's not only for monorepos. It might even be for your small side project. Also, it's good for full stack JavaScript as well, because it does support the creation and management of tools like Express or Nest.js, where you can actually create some servers with JavaScript. So is it only for monorepos? No, it's not. Why? So as I said, it gives you out-of-the-box configuration of frameworks and modern tools so that you can focus more on your application and less on configuring it, right? Usually share code across multiple applications or teams while enforcing clean integration points. And you also understand the dependencies in your code base, so you can run tests or on only the areas that were affected by the things you changed. You have the NX CLI, which we will see in action, and it's really amazing. And with the NX CLI, you also have a graphical user interface to use the CLI, which is a plugin for Visual Code. You also have a lot of tooling and a lot of schematics, so that you can really use code generation, not only for Angular, because if you have used Angular, you have used the Angular CLI, you have an idea of what schematics look like. You can generate components, you can generate services, parts of the code. So the NX CLI does provide you with a lot of such commands to create your schematics. And if you do not like the things that are generated by the NX CLI, you can create your own schematics. Also, it helps you with the workflow management and your dependency management, as we'll see, and you also get NX Cloud. So let's see all these things one by one. The CLI, it will help you generate tabs. It will help you test them, run them, organize them. And as I said, there is the NX Console. It's a tool for Visual Studio Code, which is like dials and buttons that you can click and choose and type, which will help you do what the CLI does if you do not like CLIs. We'll see it in action, but essentially you can run npx, create an NX workspace and give it a name. And this will create a whole workspace for you, which will have everything wired up. And as you can see, you can use Angular schematics, you can use Nest, and then you can build only the affected code or test only the affected code, and we will see this in action. Also, there's tooling. There's the dependency graph, which is very, very cool. Also, NX analyzes your code base and sees only the affected code. We say that you only build, you never build the same code twice. And this is true. You never test the same code twice. You never build the same code twice. Because NX will analyze your code and only go and update the things that you actually touched. Also, it provides a set of tools for migrating. So you can use a command like NX migrate, and if you want to move from one version of NX to another, and this goes with the version of the tools you're using with Angular, for example, or React, you can run this command, and it will actually take care of migrating some parts of the code from one version to another version. Then, of course, you can format. You can run an NX report to tell you the versions of all the things that you're using. You can rearrange things in the generated workspace. You can also run many applications simultaneously. As I said, the NX console. And you have a lot of plugins, which we will see in a bit. I'll show you. I'll give you a quick tour of the NX website. So plugins means that you can have a plugin for React, plugin for Angular, plugin for Nest, a plugin for Storybook that will just have their own schematics and help you build things. Schematics. I've said that word a lot today. There's a schematic for anything you want to generate. So you can generate, for example, a React application or a Node library or a React library or anything you want. And you can create your own schematics. For example, if your workspace, if your organization does things in a certain way, you can write your own schematics and then use NX to run these. At some points when I talk, I am really, really worried if I'm actually getting through or if the connection is okay and it's not lost, because I never get a instant feedback when I'm doing.
Everything is okay, Katarina.
Okay, good. Thank you. This is what I needed. So, workflow management. NX also helps you manage your workflow. You can add all the tools you need and use them from within NX. And you can organize your tests, your builds, and your CI. And also the dependency management. We'll see this in the demo. You will see how cool it is. You can manage your dependencies both internally and to external resources. You have the dependency graph, and also the cool thing about having a monorepo where in it you have multiple apps and libraries, is that you only have one package.json, where in there you have all the dependencies, so that you're sure that the application that you're developing in your front end, or the client-facing application, or the admin-facing application, all have, for example, the same version of React, so that you have your mind at ease, and you know that when you upgrade React, it's going to be upgraded in every single application or library. Also in releases, it helps you very much manage releases in all of the sub-applications and sub-libraries. Then the NX Cloud. What is the NX Cloud? So what if you want better computing power? You can expand NX's local computation memoization, this is the caching actually, to the cloud. So if your team member has already built or tested similar code, NX will use the results to speed up the command instead of rebuilding or retesting everything from scratch. What this means is that you can actually use the computation power of the NX Cloud to offload some of the load that goes to your local machine to the cloud, and this will help you have faster builds and faster testing, which is pretty cool, actually. So let's see some things that NX does. First of all, actually, I will start by showing you, you can go to this GitHub repository, which is the NX examples. And no, actually, first, let's see. If you run this command, the npx create NX workspace, and I ran it before, so before we started, let me make things bigger. They're big enough now. Here. So before we started, I made sure I run this command, which is npx create NX workspace, and it creates and I created it with a React application. So the result of this command was that I have, oops, let me make this bigger, that I have this workspace, my workspace, where I have my applications, and inside I have a React application. As you can see, no package.json here. There's only one global package.json. And I have my app component, as you see. I also have a libs folder, which we will fill in. Some tools, some schematics that I can add. Here, I can add my own custom schematics. And one package.json to rule them all, where you have the commands that are available to you. As we talked about, the affected, the build, the start, the serve, and the dependencies. So right now, if I go here and run NX, I don't have NX as a global, but never mind. You can run NX serve test tab, and it will serve your application, your React application on localhost 4,200. And it will look like this. But what if we wanted to generate a library? So if I go here and I say NX generates a React library that is called UI test, and I run this schematic, it will eventually go in this folder here, in the libraries folder, and here is my library with everything I need, the configurations. And in it, I have a new React component, right? Which is pretty amazing with just a command. And I can generate a new component in this library. So I can generate a normal React component, which will be called test library component. And it will be in the UI test library that I created. And I will export it because potentially I may need to use it in the app. So this command here would go in here in the UI test repository directory, and it would create a new component, which I would be able to use. So flash forward, I can do a lot of things here. We have this repository where you can actually see a full-blown example of an NX application. with most of the features, which I'm going to use now. So here it is. So in the NX, the NX examples directory has the same layout as you see here. It has two applications, the cart and the products. We're going to run both. And it has two libraries, which in them have a lot of UI components. So let's take a look, if I run this application, how it will look. So again, I run NX serve and I serve the products application. And again, if I go to my local host, here will be my application. And you can see that this application has a header. And if I go in my products application, which we just run, you will see that I have the NX example header. So the NX example header is in the libraries, the shared libraries, which is here. This is this component here, the NX example header. This component is used both by the product and the cart application. Oops, wrong thing to look at. Nope. Never mind, I cannot find it now, but I will show you how it's the same thing. So this is the cart application, and it has the same header component, which is shared between the two applications. Now, we understood that by just looking at the code. But what if we wanted a tool to understand it and to understand the dependencies? So for this, you have the NX dep graph that I told you before, the dependency graph. And if you run it, you will see, this is pretty amazing, right? You will see the two applications here. And you will see that we have the products application that we just run, the cart application, and then you have the shared header, which both the products and the cart application depend on. And then you have other things that both the applications depend on. Of course, both the three applications depend on the actual applications, right? But then you can actually understand which parts of the code are dependent on which. And this really, really helps you to manage your dependencies and everything else. And you can turn off things from here. And you can just play around and just, for example, look at the cart application. Also, if you want to build your application, I built it before, I cheated. So you saw that it only took a second because I had the cached outputs. If I would delete the build folder, let's see what it would do. And now if I would build again, it would take up, oh, it was again cached because I was using the NX Cloud. But in any case, you can see that it was using the cached output. So I think this pretty much wraps up the demo. Let me resume. So yeah, I think this wraps up the, let me think if there's anything else I would like to show you before I jump to your questions and finishing this session. Oh, I forgot to tell you about the Angular JSON. So this application is written in Angular, the NX examples application. The demo app I showed you is a React. So instead of an Angular JSON, it has a workspace JSON, which is the same thing. In workspace JSON, you have the architect. The architect's part is, so you have all the applications that you have available. So for example, here we would have the products, and then you would have the architect, where you would define everything that you would, all the tools that you would use in order to manage your applications. And you would have your configurations and the server configurations, the linting, the test, and the deployment. So this is this is one of the most powerful parts of NX, where you can actually edit all these things and make sure that you adjust them to whatever you need to do. So I think, yes, this wraps up the demo. You can see this demo in github.com/narwhal/nx-examples. And you can find NX on GitHub. There are a lot of code examples there, and there's a great community that you can participate in. So some of the links we talked about today are these, and you will find them in the slides. And I think that's it. You can follow me on Twitter and CyberCity. This is my site, and this is the link of these slides today. So make sure you copy it, because there are all the links that I mentioned today. And thank you very, very much.
Congratulations. Congratulations for the talk. Great applause. There are some questions already. I didn't want to disturb you during during your talk. So let's try for the first one. Dustin asked something like this. Does NX have some templates to avoid overhead of configuring NX in smaller projects?
So my answer would be that just generating the NX workspace also generates some applications with it. So the template that you have is the already generated application of when you create an NX workspace. So I think it would work in that way. So the NX itself provides itself a template out of the box.
Okay, awesome. So next question from next person. Damian Zintler. Another monorepo tool is Lerna. Is NX better? Have you any experience to be able to compare both tools?
I don't have an experience with Lerna. I cannot say if NX is better, but let me share again. In my slides, I do have, where are my slides? Oh, here they are. So in my slides, I have a link to this monorepo post written by one of the co-founders of the company, Victor, who actually compares or sort of talks about Lerna and monorepo. So I think that this post could be useful to you if you read it. If you go to my slides, is the same some resources #3 monorepos post.
Okay, so you will also share the slides later after the presentation?
Yeah, so let me post the link to the slides.
Okay.
Yeah, the link to my slides is, I posted it here. You can share it with the rest of the people.
Awesome. So we will pass it later through StreamYard. Yeah. And there is one more question from Sushmit. We met in Portugal at Web Summit last year, still before COVID. Sushmit is asking, if a repo already has multiple code folders, can NX be dropped into it to handle that?
I am not sure, unfortunately, and that is bad of me. I think that you can add an X to an existing repository. I mean, I'm pretty positive you can, but I do not know how exactly it would handle all these things. So I can get back to you.